Some betrayals don't come crashing into your life like thunder. They seep in quietly, softly, until the moment you realize everything you believed in has been shattered. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon, a day I thought would be ordinary, even joyful. I was supposed to be away until Friday, but a last-minute change in my deployment brought me home early. I thought I'd surprise my husband Ethan with takeout from his favorite Korean barbecue place. Instead, I walked straight into the end of the life I thought I had. The house was still when I unlocked the door, my duffel bag dragging across the hardwood floor. I remember the smell of roasted meat rising from the bag mingling with the faint scent of Ethan's cologne that always lingered in our home. Then I heard it, the music. Low, pulsing, sensual beats that didn't belong to Ethan's playlists. Something deliberate. Something meant to seduce. My heart knew before my mind would admit it. I set the food down on the counter as quietly as possible, like I'd become a stranger in my own house, an intruder who didn't belong. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, just enough for light and shadows to spill through. And there she was, Lana, my best friend of 15 years. The woman who had stood beside me at my promotion ceremony, the godmother to our daughter Katie, the one who had held my hair back during nights of combat stress when my body betrayed me. She was in my bedroom naked, dancing for my husband, for Ethan. I didn't scream. I didn't burst into the room. Instead, I felt something harden inside me, a cold, diamond-sharp clarity I had never felt before. I pulled out my phone, my hands steady despite the storm tearing through my chest, and snapped 3 pictures. Her body twirling, his eyes fixed on her, the stupid half-smile on his face that I had once thought meant love. Then I backed away silent, unnoticed, a ghost in my own life. I sat in my car outside for 2 hours, my hands shaking against the steering wheel, waiting for her to leave. When she finally walked out, she looked satisfied, glowing, even as if nothing she'd done had torn my world apart. She even waved at our elderly neighbor like she belonged there. That was the moment the betrayal truly burned, not just because my husband had betrayed me, but because Lana, the sister I never had looked me in the eye day after day knowing she was lying. How long had it been going on? Months, years. I scrolled through my phone in the dark car looking at pictures of us together. Lana holding Katie at her birthday, both of them pulling funny faces. Lana and me on a camping trip, arms linked like sisters. The bomber jacket she helped me pick out for Ethan, the same one he wore while she danced for him. Every memory twisted into something grotesque. That night I cooked dinner as if nothing had happened. I kissed Ethan's cheek. I asked about his day. He lied effortlessly, telling me about a long day on base. 13 years of marriage, and only now did I realize how easily the lies came to him. As I stirred the sauce, my voice steady, I told him I was thinking of hosting a dinner party on Saturday. I smiled as I suggested inviting Lana and her parents. For the first time since I walked into that bedroom, I felt something other than pain. I felt power, a plan forming in the shadows of my mind. He looked startled but agreed. I kissed him goodnight, lay beside him in bed, and whispered silently to the dark, "You have no idea what's coming." The next morning, I drove to the cafe near Katie's school and opened my laptop. My hands shook as I uncovered their messages, their hotel reservations, their smug words about me. Ethan had written, "She'll never suspect. Rachel always sees the best in people. It's her greatest weakness." Lana had replied with a heart emoji. They had loved me while betraying me. That contradiction nearly broke me. I cried silently in a cafe restroom until my body ached from it. And then just as quickly, I wiped my tears, reapplied my makeup, and walked out stronger than I'd ever been. I called Lana's mother, Eleanor, that same afternoon. I invited her and her husband, Richard, to dinner, my voice sweet, polite. She accepted without hesitation, and I knew it was perfect timing. When I later spoke to Lana, her voice wavered with panic the moment she heard her parents were invited. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Because they should know Ethan better," I said, my tone calm, my smile audible through the phone. For once, I didn't rescue her from her fear. I let her sit in it. Ethan grew restless over the next few days, suggesting we cancel or keep the dinner small. But I only smiled. I visited an attorney in secret, gathered evidence, and uncovered more than I had bargained for. Ethan wasn't just cheating. He had siphoned nearly $200,000 from our accounts, hiding it away for his exit strategy with Lana. The double betrayal should have destroyed me, but instead it clarified everything. This wasn't just about love anymore, it was about my daughter, my future, my dignity. Friday night, I prepared our home for the dinner. Fine china candles, the best wine. I placed hidden cameras discreetly around the rooms. Every detail was deliberate, every move rehearsed. I wasn't walking blindly anymore. On Saturday morning, I ran farther than I ever had, before every step pounding the clarity deeper into me. By evening, I dressed in the black dress Ethan had always loved, pearls around my neck, makeup sharp and deliberate. When Lana arrived early with a forced smile and a bottle of champagne, I was ready. She stepped into the house with that brittle smile, her green dress carefully chosen, her auburn hair perfectly curled, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted nervously around the room, looking for clues, for signs of what I knew. She set the champagne on the table, her fingers trembling slightly. "Rachel, we need to talk," she said, her voice pitched higher than usual, strained, like she was forcing cheer through panic. "Yes, we do," I replied evenly, leading her into the living room. I gestured to the sofa while I settled into the armchair across from her. The hidden camera caught everything. She sat stiffly, her arms crossed as if she could shield herself with posture alone. "You've been different all week," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "What's going on?" I leaned back, my voice calm but laced with steel. "I've been thinking a lot about loyalty, about friendship, about what we owe the people we claim to love." Her expression shifted, a flicker of fear rippling through her. "That sounds philosophical." "No," I said softly. "It's very practical." I reached for the remote resting on the side table. With a single press, the television screen came alive. And there she was, frozen in that damning moment, her body swaying naked in front of Ethan. The color drained from her face. She shot to her feet. "Turn it off, Rachel. This isn't what it looks like," I finished for her. "Please don't insult me, not now." Tears welled in her eyes. Whether they came from guilt or fear, I couldn't tell. "I never meant to hurt you." A laugh escaped me, sharp and hollow. "That's funny, because from where I'm sitting, hurting me is exactly what you and Ethan planned. And you know what else? $200,000. That's how much he's been siphoning from our accounts for your new life together." Her eyes widened. Genuine surprise flickered across her face. Interesting. Ethan hadn't told her about the money. I filed that detail away like another weapon in my arsenal. "How long?" I asked, my voice flat. Her shoulders sagged, her strength crumbling under the weight of the truth. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of dinners, of birthdays, of family moments where she smiled at me while stabbing me in the back. My composure finally cracked. "Do you know what hurts most? That you could look me in the eye every single day and pretend to be my friend?" "I am your friend," she whispered desperately. "No." The word dropped heavy between us, final. "You never were." For a fleeting moment, I saw the ghost of the woman who had once been my closest companion, the one who'd cried with me when my father died, who whispered secrets late at night over bottles of wine, who sat beside me when I gave birth to Katie. That woman was gone. Maybe she had never existed at all. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped us both back to reality. She stiffened, her face pale. "They're here. Rachel, please, don't do this." "Please. What? Protect your secret. Spare your reputation. Why would I?" "Because of Katie," she pleaded. "Think about her." "I have," I said coldly, "for days. And I've decided the truth matters more than your comfort." The front door opened. Ethan's cheerful voice carried into the house. "We're here." I didn't move my eyes from Lana's face as I answered, "In the living room." Ethan walked in first, followed by Eleanor and Richard Harper. Eleanor looked elegant, poised, though her sharp gaze immediately caught the tension in the air. Richard trailed behind, quieter, but his eyes were keen. "Rachel, it's lovely to see you again," Eleanor said warmly, moving to kiss my cheek before noticing her daughter's pallor. "Lana, darling, you're here early?" "Mom," Lana whispered, her voice breaking. "What's going on?" Ethan asked, his false cheer faltering when he noticed the frozen image still glaring from the TV screen. I rose slowly, smoothing the fabric of my dress. My voice was calm, deliberate. I was just about to explain. "Eleanor, Richard, thank you so much for coming." I invited you because there's something you need to know about your daughter. And my husband. Rachel, don't do this, Ethan snapped, his mask slipping. I ignored him. For the past 8 months, they've been having an affair. In my home, in my bed. While smiling to my face as if nothing was wrong, Eleanor gasped, clutching her pearls as though the truth had physically struck her. Richard's face hardened, his jaw clenching. And that's not all, I continued, pulling out documents from the folder I had hidden beneath the table. Ethan has been draining money from our accounts, money meant for Katie, for our future, into a private account, preparing his exit. That's not true, Lana cried, her head snapping toward Ethan. Tell them that's not true. But Ethan said nothing. His silence condemned him more than words ever could. Richard turned to his daughter, his voice low, filled with disappointment. Is this true, Katerina? She flinched at the sound of her full name, whispered like judgment. Dad, it's complicated. No, I said, my voice firm. Betrayal is simple. Eleanor's face crumpled as she turned from me to her daughter, her voice trembling with shame. Rachel, I can't begin to tell you how sorry I am. We raised Lana better than this. Apparently not, I whispered, though the words carried enough weight to silence the room. Ethan tried to reclaim control, his voice sharp with desperation. This is a private matter. It doesn't concern anyone but Rachel and me. But Richard Harper stepped forward, his presence suddenly commanding, his voice as cold as steel. When you involved my daughter in destroying a family, you made it my concern. The next 20 minutes played out like a courtroom drama. Eleanor oscillated between apologizing to me and scolding Lana, her southern composure cracking into sobs and fury. Richard's questions sliced through the air like a prosecutor dismantling a case, demanding answers about Ethan's hidden accounts, his siphoned funds, his lies. And every time Ethan stammered or tried to explain, I handed over another document, another piece of evidence I had prepared. Their faces told me everything. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. The betrayal was real, undeniable, and laid bare before the people they could never hide from. Finally, silence settled. Heavy. I broke it. Dinner is cancelled. But before you all leave, there's one more thing. From the console table, I pulled out 2 sealed envelopes and handed them to Eleanor and Richard. This is the contact information for my attorney. She'll be reaching out to you as potential character witnesses for my custody case. I turned to Ethan, my voice sharp as glass. On Monday, I'll be filing for divorce, full custody of Katie, and financial restitution for what you stole. His face drained of color. You can't do this. I met his eyes, unflinching. Watch me. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't falter. Now, all of you, leave my house. One by one, they filed out. Eleanor lingered, squeezing my hand with tears in her eyes before stepping into the night. Richard followed, his expression carved from stone. Lana slunk past me, her head bowed, unable to meet my gaze. And Ethan, he lingered, desperation in his voice. Rachel, please. We need to talk about this rationally. Your things will be in storage by Monday, I said coldly. The access code will go to your attorney. Do not come back here. Then I closed the door. For a moment, I simply stood there, my back pressed against the wood, my chest heaving. Not from rage, not from grief, but from relief. My whole body shook as though releasing years of tension. The house was quiet again, the way it had been that Tuesday when I first stepped inside and heard the music. Only now the silence wasn't filled with betrayal. It was filled with freedom. I had spoken the truth. I had taken back control, and I was still standing. The weeks that followed blurred into a storm of paperwork, court meetings, therapy sessions, and long conversations with Katie. I sat with her one night, her small face so earnest as she asked, "Why isn't Daddy coming home?" I swallowed my grief, smoothed her hair, and whispered, "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love, but that doesn't mean they stop loving you. It just means they made a mistake." She thought for a moment, then said, "Like when I broke your vase and tried to hide it." A bittersweet smile tugged at my lips. "Yes, baby, only bigger." Ethan didn't fight the divorce. Not after Richard Harper recommended a forensic financial specialist who uncovered even more of his duplicity. His reputation at work unraveled, his career slipped through his fingers, and by summer he had relocated to Chicago, seeing Katie only during scheduled visits. And me, I didn't just survive, I rebuilt, I restructured, I began again. Lana vanished from our social circle, retreating back to Texas to live under her parents' roof. I only heard fragments through mutual acquaintances, words like shame, rebuilding, lost. Eleanor and I ironically grew closer in the aftermath. Two women, bound by betrayal, disappointment, and the scars left by those we trusted most. You showed more dignity that night than most would have, she told me once. I admire you. 6 months after the dinner, I sold our house, the home that had become a graveyard of lies. I bought a smaller one closer to Katie's school. On moving day, after the last box was unpacked, I stood in the empty living room, sunlight spilling across the bare floor, and I sank down to cry. Not from grief. From the staggering relief of no longer living inside a lie. Yet even then, in the quiet of my new beginning, shadows lingered. At night, sometimes I would wake expecting Ethan's voice, his cologne, his presence. And then the memory would strike fresh. He was gone. By choice. One evening, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Heard you moved today. I hope your new place brings you happiness. I'm sorry for everything. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without replying. Some bridges don't need rebuilding, some deserve to burn. A year after that night, I sat on the patio of my new home, a glass of wine in hand, watching the sun sink into the horizon. The air was quiet, filled only with the chirping of crickets and the distant laughter of Katie playing in the yard. It was a peace I hadn't felt in years, a peace I thought I might never feel again. My mother joined me, easing into the chair beside mine, her presence as steady as it had been through every storm of my life. "Penny, for your thoughts," she asked softly, her eyes warm, searching. "I was just thinking about how different things turned out," I admitted. "A year ago, I thought my life was over. Now, it finally feels like it's mine." She reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "You know what I'm proudest of? That you didn't let their betrayal change who you are. You didn't become bitter, you became stronger." I wanted to believe her, and maybe she was right. But I also knew there had been dark moments, nights when rage consumed me, when I dreamed of burning everything to the ground. Days when I felt hollow, broken, less than human. Yet somehow I had walked through the fire without letting it define me, and that was strength too. Later that night, after my mother had gone home and Katie was tucked safely in bed, I pulled out an old photo album. Not of Ethan, not of Lana, but of me before them. The ambitious young woman with fire in her eyes, the one who laughed without caution, who believed the world was hers to claim. Somewhere along the way, I had lost her. But the betrayal, the pain, the destruction, they had forced me to find her again, to rebuild her, stronger, clearer. I stood in front of the hallway mirror, the reflection staring back at me, both familiar and strange. Lines had deepened around my eyes, but so had the clarity in them. "The truth may hurt," I whispered to my reflection. "But secrets destroy." And for the first time in years, I felt whole. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever felt the ground crumble beneath you, then maybe you know this too. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destruction, it's in reconstruction. You may lose people. You may lose the life you thought you had, but you don't lose yourself unless you choose to. Pain will visit, but peace is rebuilt one day, one choice at a time. I rebuilt mine, and you can rebuild yours. So if my story touched you, if it reminded you of your own scars and your own strength, I ask you, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it, needs to know they're not alone. Like this video if it spoke to you. Subscribe if you want more stories of truth, of betrayal, of transformation. And leave a comment, because maybe your words will be the lifeline for someone standing in the ruins, waiting for a reason to rise again. Because the truth does hurt, but secrets they destroy, and the choice to rise is always yours.